Well, I was asked to do a talk on Bible 2. The last time I spoke on the Bible was on the Noah and the flood. And what we kind of saw there was how you can take a story and look at the characters and the places, and using some metaphysical interpretation, you can discover an inner meaning to those stories that actually mean a lot more than just, oh, there was a flood and Noah built an ark and all the animals went on it, da 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 da. From these stories, we can learn principle and practical ways of applying it in our life. It's just amazing. The Bible is a history book. It's a how-to book. It's a great book on psychology. And today, I'm going to sort of touch on the psychology, but I'm not going to tell you a story, because those stories are reserved for the class. And those of you who are planning to come, I'm so glad you're going to be there. And those of you who are not, you should reconsider. Because Jack Blackman and I, we are a team. And it's going to be wonderful, wonderful. Now, the stories in the Bible, I mean, they really top All My Children and As the World Turns. I mean, you can just find some really juicy stuff in there. Juicy meaning graceful also. But I'm not going there. You have to come on Tuesday night to start that process. What I want to talk about is a psalm, something that provides us very clearly with tools that allow us to develop and live and experience in a closer union with our source. You say, well, why aren't we unified with our source? I mean, it is our source. We can't go anywhere, do anything, say anything without it. But in our journey out of the garden, as we start to individuate, because God loves to express itself through us, we began to individuate, we separated. And we had to do that. We grew a body. We learned, we learned about opposites, duality. But the whole point of the journey is to return to the garden, integrated. The garden is this planet, your world right now. And the idea is to integrate spirit into everything we think, do, and say. This is one psalm that and it's going to be on the 23rd Psalm. I really encourage people to memorize it. I've memorized it, and it has saved my life so many times, especially in times of uncertainty. And where I clearly saw this psalm at work was when I got a layoff notice from work. It was right after 9/11, and the aerospace industry that I was working in, it was going to do some cutbacks, and I was a new kid on the block. But I also realized under the circumstances, there are casualties of these types of things, and that's simply what it was. And I knew, and I remembered that one of my sister-in-laws had always told me, she says, Maggie, you always land on your feet. And I wondered, well, how do I land on my feet with this? And the 23rd Psalm came to me. And so I memorized it, and not just memorized it. I wanted to get it into my cells. I wanted to feel it. And I did that. And every day, we had a 60-day time period before you actually had to leave. And so during that 60 days, I was so engrossed in the 23rd Psalm and the Lord's Prayer that if people saw me walking, they wouldn't have thought I was walking on the ground. I was so blessed. I'll tell you I'll tell you now. After working through this for 59 days, and doing this, I went on an interview. And the interview lasted 10 minutes. And you know what a 10-minute interview sounds like. Feels like, I made the trip. It was a good outing. I got practice interviewing, yada, 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 but I didn't think much about it. But I was really committed to the will of God, knowing that even if tomorrow was my last day at work, that there would be an opening. My 10-minute interview, I figured it was just a 2-hour drive down to another plant. But I got a call before I got home that I had the job, and I was starting tomorrow. And so the beauty of this psalm is that during this time, I did not have my hand on the panic button. You all know about the panic button. Okay? And that's one of the first principles we have to learn. I think that should be one of the first commandments. Don't panic. Don't panic. Well, and the 23rd Psalm, it can be very helpful. Normally, we hear this at funerals, and I don't understand that. Because this psalm is all about life and living life. It's not about something beyond us. It's not about the grave and death, and I don't understand it. I don't understand why that's where we mostly hear it. But we do. But I'm going to take it from a different perspective. First of all, this psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd," really describes a beautiful relationship that David had with his Creator. They were one, and you can hear it in the psalm. It is between God and man, parent and child. Now, those of us who've come out of dysfunctional families, we're grown-ups now. We're not children. So we have to lay down. We have to break with the past of any sort of dysfunction that came out of that. All of that is grist for the mill as we become more and more spiritual beings. So we let go of that and we conceive of the ideal parent-child relationship. And I know there are ideal parents there, out here. You would do anything for your children. If they ask you for bread, you wouldn't give them a rock, would you? No. You love them. In the New Testament, we're told that it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. And his delight is when we say yes. And so this psalm is about saying yes and developing this relationship with the shepherd. Man's biggest problem is, I do it my way. Don't tell me what to do. Have you ever heard any of this? Don't tell me what to do. I can handle it. I don't need any help. I know what I'm doing. And we don't. We have, especially in our country, we have a huge emphasis on self-reliance. So we figure we got to be able to do it, no, whatever. Right. But our spiritual journey is not just self-reliance in the terms of the ego sense, the I am that we weren't singing about. It is about spiritualizing our journey to grow physically in this world and also to spiritualize our bodies, our world, and to bring that into the kingdom. And you know why? Because our Creator loves to create. Delights in its creation if we let it. Now, for those of you who are wondering whether or not, you're very self-reliant in this, let me just ask you, if you think you can do without the shepherd, let me just ask you this. Can you control all your moods? Are you always happy and upbeat? You never get grumpy? Anyone? Are you always at peace? Anyone find that at times they are not at peace? Those who are truly at peace, even their exes and old flames speak highly of you? Do you have no fears? Do they call you Teflon Tuffy because you can handle it all? Wall Street problems? Oh, no problem. You have a heart problem? Oh, what's for dinner? Yawn. Does anyone need forgiveness? Have you never made a mistake? Are you as clean as Grandma's kitchen? Have you ever lied? Cheated? Lied about cheating? If any of those are true in your life, then let me tell you, you can't control your moods. The shepherd is going to help you, though. And the reason symbology is a shepherd, David was a king, a warrior. He could have used any symbol for this psalm, but he used the shepherd because the shepherd is a symbol of that which is protective, always there, all caring. The shepherd is with their sheep night and day. And if the flock comes in for the evening and there's one sheep missing, the shepherd leaves the flock and goes to find the lost sheep. So even in your times where you feel lost, where you feel separated, where you feel, I just don't know what to do, you can count on the shepherd is looking for you. And every step that we make towards spirit, every step that we take to incorporating more and more of spirit in our life, spirit meets us by the mile. I spend a lot of time in the I Can Do It My Way. You know that Frank Sinatra song? But let me just turn the 23rd Psalm around, kind of match that, you know. If you're living outside of that, then it sounds something like this. I am my own shepherd. I'm always in need. I stumble from wall to wall, shrink to shrink, looking for relief, but never find it. I creep through the valley of the shadow of death, panic and fall apart. I fear everything from pesticides to power lines. I'm even afraid that I'm starting to act like my mother. I go to staff meetings and I'm surrounded by my enemies. And even my goldfish snarl at me when I come home. I anoint my headache with extra strength Tylenol. And my Jack Daniels runneth over. Surely misery and misfortune will follow me all the days that I live because I did it my way. Joseph was a shepherd. He knew a lot about sheep. And in this psalm, he's speaking from the perspective of the sheep. Do we have any sheep farmers in here? Oh, good. I can share some information about sheep. First of all, sheep are very feeble. They can't defend themselves. They have no claws. They wouldn't think of biting you. They have no fangs. Their only defense is to run away. And if the least thing startles them, they do run away. The whole pack just runs, even though the thing that startled them may be good. The sheep can't clean themselves. They can't take care of themselves. And they're all dependent upon the shepherd. You know, when we think of sheep, we never think of football teams, do we? We have the LA Rams, but we don't have the New York sheep, do we? Right? We don't think of sheep as being powerful, strong team symbols. Even when you go to the circus, you never see any sheep trainers. You know, sheep don't roll over, sit up, do a dance, because sheep are really dumb. And when I say dumb, I mean innocent. That part of you that is a sheep is very innocent. But the shepherd is there. That's the promise. And we'll now go through looking at each of these. There's 12 statements in this poem, and it is a perfect prayer for life. It starts out as, the Lord is my shepherd, and this means that the law, the Lord, that's what we mean when we talk about the Lord, watches over me, takes care of me. And when David used this term, the Lord is my shepherd, he personalized something that most people thought of as impersonal, the God outside of us. The Lord is my shepherd. The shepherd takes care of me. I'm part of the flock. Do you know in your heart that every one of you is an invited guest to this planet? An invited guest. And your host desires you to have all that you need, all that you desire for your growth. And one thing about the shepherd, they have to be committed because they're always with the flock. If they go too far away from the flock, the sheep start to get very nervous. And sheep don't do well when they're nervous because they feel so defenseless. The Lord that David is also talking about in some translations of the Bible, and you find that it refers to as Jehovah. And Jehovah means the God that incarnates. The Jehovah is the I am. Okay? So the shepherd incarnates in its sheep, in us. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. When we realize this, we can be free of doubt, we can be free of compulsions, and we can know that everything is provided. I shall not want. How many of you have gone 48 hours without saying, I want? Okay. Well, we have a great consumer society. And, they say heart disease is a big killer. Well, consumerism, I wantism, can kill you just as easily as any other problem. I want this, I want that, I want this. There's a never-ending desire of wants. But when the shepherd is caring for us, we don't have to worry. We don't have to worry because, as David, we're confident that the shepherd is going to take care of us, that is not going to disappoint us, that's not going to take the weekend off or have a busy signal on its phone when we call. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me lie down in green pastures. Now, let me tell you first of all, sheep don't lie down unless they feel safe. And that means there's no chance that predators are around. There's no bugs, because bugs can kill sheep. If you knew that, I didn't know that, because I'm not a sheep farmer. And so for us to lay down, we have to feel safe. And if we put our confidence in the shepherd, we do not have to worry about being safe, because the shepherd will provide for that, regardless of what you think. The shepherd provides for everything. Now, in the Holy Land, Middle East, the land is not green, right? It's barren, it's brown. Green would represent an oasis. And so here in the desert, and this is especially times when we feel like we're in the desert, where we're dried up spiritually, okay? The Lord makes us lie down in green pastures, brings us to the oasis, and doesn't just say, hang out, makes us lie down. When I was going through this experience of the layoff, that was the thing that I got. I was sharing the Lord's Prayer, or the sermon, the 23rd Psalm with my sister, and she says, what do you mean he makes you lie down in green pastures? What do you mean he makes you lie down in prosperity? Because that's what we're here for. When we resist, or when we can't relax because we're afraid of bugs or something harming us, we have to go back to what's caring for us. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Now, when sheep get their coats, they're pretty heavy, and they get bugs in them and mud in them and doo-doo in them, and not like a cat. A cat can clean itself. A lot of animals can clean itself, but sheep cannot clean themselves. And with all this wool, if they have to go into running water, like if they have to cross a stream, they're not going to make it, because their fur, their wool is going to get so heavy, they're going to sink to the bottom. And so the shepherd leads us to still waters so we don't drown. And the still waters represent peace, meditation. When the sheep cannot find water in the desert, the shepherd is able to divert water, to provide the water, the life, whatever the sheep need. What happens to us is we can get caught in the excitement. Oh, wow, this is so exciting. And suddenly our peace is gone, our confidence is gone, and we start taking Xanax or something. I'm not sure. I studied with a meditation or a yoga teacher for a long time. And for 6 months, I had to live with the mantra, calm, calm. Just be calm. He restoreth my soul. Restores our soul from the freedom. Restores our soul to freedom. And this is where we get all forgiveness. When our soul is restored, we live without guilt. We live without shame. We live without bitterness. We live free to be the God in us that God is. The shepherd restoreth our soul by removing our burdens, the things that we carry with us, the grudges, the things that we can't forget that we hold against people. And so as we're led to still water, we're able to release the things of the past and move into a restored soul, new life. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Oh, don't you like that name, righteousness? It does not mean arrogant. Most people think if someone is righteousness, that they're arrogant. In fact, arrogance is a sign of someone who doesn't have the shepherd in their life. What righteousness means is the right use of your faculties. So he leads me, he guides me in a path where I am using my mind, my body, my spirit, my words, my thoughts, all of my actions in a right way. And when we say it's for his name's sake, it's because all of this is for God. So he leads us in this path of righteousness because he delights in our creation. And he's also growing us so that we can consciously delight in that same creation with him. But to get down that path, we have to get out of the way. Our ego has to step aside. We have to say, okay, even though I think I can do it my way, I'm going to allow the shepherd, the Spirit, to guide and direct my every action. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The shadow of death. Notice it's not death, because in reality there is no death. You cannot destroy energy, and we are energetic beings. It's all energy. All you can do is reform it. In fact, as I was getting ready for the class on this week, I was noticing that, God didn't create us. God didn't create us. He formed us out of substance because he formed us out of his own substance. So there is no death. Death can mean change. And I discovered a couple of weeks ago that I was really struggling with change. When I found my mantra was telling everyone, I really need to get a new phone. I need to change my carrier in this. And it was sort of like, wait a second, do something with it, okay? Make the change. You notice when we get through change, it's not as bad. In fact, sometimes it's better than it was before. And when we are walking through those times in the valley, the thing that most remember is, I am always with you. I am always with you. I will never forget you, never forsake you. You'll learn in the Bible class that Jesus didn't say on the cross, why did they forsake me? You'll learn what he really said, because he knew that the Father, the shepherd within, never forsakes us. Thy rod and thy staff, they will comfort me. The rod is power, and the staff is protection. Remember the story where Moses pounded the rod? Pharaoh wasn't allowing his people to leave Egypt, and so he pounded the rod on he actually threw the rod down, it turns into snakes. He pounded the rod, he turns the river into blood. Rod is power. So the power of the shepherd is with us, comforts us. The staff is our protection. It's the hook. It's the way Spirit brings us back. I know the hook of Spirit. I'm moving my life. Everything's going just really good down the path. And suddenly something happens, like I get hit by a car when I start doing my Christmas shopping, and Spirit has now picked me up and moved me in another direction, a new path. We have to discipline ourselves. We have to train our minds to use our power and to use our protection and to know that it is from God. It is not from your bank account. It is not from your stock portfolio. And it's not from whomever you think in your life is going to save you. The next verse is, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. That's kind of strange, isn't it? Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Well, what a better way to make friends? Put out a feast. That's bold, isn't it? If you were in the valley and you're getting ready to go to war, and there comes your enemy and they say, hey, come on, let's break bread together. What happens? There's usually understanding. There's usually a meeting of minds. But this table is the same table that the shepherd prepares for our life. It is a banquet filled with everything that life could offer you. In order to really grasp the magnitude of this table that is set before us, is to expand our idea of God. Most of us have a very limited idea of God. The table is a feast. We're rich. The enemies are the thoughts of doubt, self-doubt, fear, self-condemnation. Thou anointest my head with oil. This was actually a ritual that they did with kings. And each of us, as divine beings, have already been anointed in this realm. We are royal. We should think of ourselves as royal, not as the scum of the earth. The other thing about oil is that when sheep get flies around their face, okay, these animals can't defend themselves. They don't take their paw like a dog or something and swat the fly away, or like my dogs do, try to eat it. They have no protection. And so what happens is the flies swarming around their head, in their face, in their eyes, can literally drive them insane and can cause them to start beating their head against rocks or whatever to put themselves out of their misery. The oil that is used here is a protective oil that the shepherd puts on the sheep so that it protects them from the bugs and that could actually kill them. So the Spirit anoints us with oil too when we are wounded. But we have to turn to Spirit. Spirit never forces us to do anything. My cup runneth over. This is our assurance of the thoroughness and the fullness of the demonstration. God doesn't just provide enough. If you were here for the reception last Friday, you know God doesn't just provide enough. There's always more than enough. More than enough. And we are free to take whatever we need and want, no matter the size of our cup. So when you go and you pray, do you take a little cup and say, Lord, fill my little cup? Or do you go to the ocean and jump in and say, fill me? When our cup runneth over, it allows us to do another purpose that we have here. One purpose is to spiritualize our lives and our matter, and the other is to be together, to help each other. And so Spirit provides more than enough so that we can share with our fellow beings. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. This is a wonderful one. Surely, without a doubt, goodness, mercy, goodness, good things, not tragedy, not tragedy, not misfortune, but goodness and mercy follow us. Now, I learned that the word follow change. A lot of words change over time. And in the class on Tuesday, you're going to learn a lot about how words mean different things than what we thought they were. But when you think of follow, you think of something behind you that's sort of meandering about, right? But this word follow meant comes out and gets you. So it wasn't passive. Surely goodness and mercy shall snatch me up all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The house of the Lord, the law of our being, the law the I am within us uses to create. The house of the Lord isn't spacey, it's grounded. It's grounded in this world, because this world was meant to be spiritualized so that we all go back to the garden where we live with the awareness of our oneness, and we live without lack. We live without limitation. We live with the Lord, with the God that is the God within us. And so, take these words, look at what it offers you. Memorize this psalm if you can, because it will provide you solution to the endless wants. It will provide you rest from your weariness, your worry, your guilt. Rest from the fear of change. It will relieve your grief and your guilt. Take care of your loneliness, any shame, disappointment, envy, doubt. And most of all, it will heal the thing that we oftentimes don't realize we have. And that is our homesickness. And I'm not talking about our physical home. I'm talking about our home in the midst of spirit. And we long for that. It's what drives us through life, pulls us through life. And when we have the guarantee that I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever, we are at home. Namaste. Hope to see you on Tuesday.